Good riddance to Glen Murray, kind of. I'm Brian Lilly with the Rebel.media. Glen Murray is out as Kathleen Wynne's Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. But don't worry, this man who's been at the public teat for nearly 30 years isn't going too far. He's just moved over to an NGO, a non-governmental organization, a lobby group that's going to spend an awful lot of its time sucking up to government to get their policies enacted and, hey, maybe get some funding along the way as well. Murray is stepped down as Wynne's Minister of the Environment and Climate Change to take a job with the Pembina Institute, a far-left organization that advocates for shutting down oil sands projects, that cheers the closure of the LNG port and pipeline in British Columbia. You know, the $36 billion project that would have employed thousands of people to construct, thousands of people throughout its lifetime. Yeah, they cheered on that. Glen Murray is going to be their new executive director. But I still have to cheer the fact that this guy is leaving elected politics. I mean, he was first elected in 1989 to Winnipeg City Council. He eventually became mayor, and then in 2004 tried to become a Liberal MP. He failed at that, thankfully, but unfortunately he just wouldn't go away. He ended up being appointed to the National Roundtable on the Environment and the Economy by Paul Martin and his Liberals over the objections of the NDP, the Bloc, and the Conservatives who voted against him. And Martin still appointed him anyway. Eventually he left that job and he left Winnipeg, moved to Toronto and became an MPP, a member of the Ontario Provincial Parliament, and eventually the Minister of the Environment and Climate Change. Along the way, he's accused everyone of bigotry that doesn't agree with him, everyone that doesn't agree with him of being homophobic, everyone that doesn't agree with him of having some kind of phobia. But he's also proven himself to be quite the hypocrite and quite the man that doesn't quite get how the economy works. So it's good that he's leaving government, not that it's going to save Kathleen Wynne's sinking ship. It was just under 2 weeks ago that Glen Murray was in California, advocating that Ontario and its economy being based in any part on resource extraction. Let me read to you from the Bloomberg story where he actually said this, because it's quite shocking when you consider all the mining, all the forestry that takes place in this province, all the resource extraction. This is still a major part of Ontario's economy. Glen Murray, as the Minister of the Environment in California, said, "We had to stop this." Here's the quote. "Our view would be different to some of the right wing in the U.S., which has a nostalgic economic policy. Going down that road would be a dead end. We see the future as an economy based on resource recovery, not resource extraction." Yeah, let's all get rich through recycling, Glen. I have to ask myself, that was July 19th, and on July 31st, he's announced as the new executive director of the Pembina Institute. So is he putting forth Pembina Institute policy or Government of Ontario policy? Because if that's Government of Ontario policy, that is highly concerning. But this guy is someone that's had a history of concerning policy announcements when it comes to the environment, when it comes to resource extraction. Let me point out that he is someone that came up with the idea of what he called the circular economy. That's right, the circular economy. We're all just going to recycle everything and go through, everything would be recycled, everything we'd go round and around and around. And all of this is pretty, appropriate considering that when he was mayor of Winnipeg, he was awarded a Golden Teddy Award for installing $1 million toilet on a pedestrian bridge. That would be a circular economy, as far as I can tell. Other notable issues from Glen Murray's tenure as a politician, well, he mused about Ontario phasing out natural gas as a source for home heating fuel. This is the source that's used by more than 70% of the homes in Ontario. More than 70% of the homes. He mused about getting rid of it. There was even a cabinet note on how to do this, and Kathleen Wynne had to back away very quickly from her Minister of the Environment and Climate Change on this. By the way, in one of the same stories that broke that, Murray was also out there saying, if you want a clean economy, buy a new car. How does that work? I've got a very fuel-efficient car, but it's kind of an old car. Isn't using a car that already exists and running it through the end of its life, isn't that better than scrapping it and buying a new one with all the resources that go into that? Not according to Murray. Here's the quote. "So how do you avoid paying that?" This being his carbon tax that he wanted to bring in. How do you avoid paying that? You go and buy a Chevy Bolt or a new Tesla, or you buy an i3, a crossover, or Chrysler's coming out with a new electric minivan. You buy one of those vehicles that doesn't pollute, and you're never going to pay for gas. Never mind the gas taxes on that. We're trying to make people revenue neutral, Murray said. Speaking of Tesla, by the way, it wasn't that long ago that Murray's chief of staff left to take a job with Tesla. Interesting thing about that was it came just after Tesla successfully lobbied the Ontario government to increase its subsidy for electric cars like the Tesla S3 or Model S, that you can get about $14,000 back from the government. Then Murray's chief of staff takes a job with Tesla. It's all rather cozy. And of course, who can forget Murray's carbon footprint when he was the head of the National Roundtable on the environment and the economy? Let me read to you from a Toronto Sun story at the time. The approximately 128 flights Murray took over a 3-year period would have pumped more than 36,000 kilograms of carbon dioxide into the atmosphere, an estimate reached using a carbon footprint calculator on the TerraPass website. This is one of those guys that still believes in do what I say, not what I do. This is a guy that jet sets around the world and tells the rest of us to lead smaller lives while he doesn't. As I said, he's also someone that turns around and calls everyone that doesn't agree with him a bigot. He had to apologize in the Ontario legislature for saying that anyone that voted for Rob Ford, Tim Hudak, or Stephen Harper was obviously a hate-filled bigot. This is a guy that shouldn't be in elected politics. So good. Go to the Pembina Institute. Continue to suck at the government teat in one way or another, because I'm sure that at one point you're going to turn around and lobby your old department for a government subsidy or a government grant or something. Glen Murray is just the type of guy that couldn't cut it in the private sector, but he's found a way to make himself very rich, very well off, and someone that can travel the world on mostly your dime, all the while making it seem like he really cares about the environment. No, what Glen Murray really cares about is making his tushy cushy, something the Pembina Institute is about to take up the bill for, rather than the taxpayers of Ontario. Glen, normally people say, don't let the door hit you on the way out. I'd be fine if it did. If you like the Rebel video you just watched, never miss another one again. Click here to subscribe. And if you haven't subscribed to Rebel Canada, make sure you do that. That's our channel devoted exclusively to Canadian political news.